Hello everyone, my name is Sam Hatfield. I am a sophomore and I'm going to be winging this MCing of this Newman Night Testimonies evening. So we're going to start out with freshman Will Zimmerman on his experience in Utah.
This is on my experience during Awakening.
During Awakening, but also...
I've had a lot of good times in Utah, but no. So I'm a freshman, my name is Will Zimmerman. And so my talk is about a moment of my faith in college during Awakening. So my story with the Newman Center starts at the very beginning of freshman year. I was here during the first dinners, and transitioning from high school to college is really tough because my high school class was 65 kids. That was my graduating class, and so coming to a community of 10,000 students, 10,000 undergrads was like overwhelming. It was really tough. And my twin brother, I think a lot of you guys know him, he's here, so that really helped. But the other thing that really helped was having a really loving and supporting community in the Newman Center. So as the weeks went by, I'd go to the dinners, and I'd go to mass with friends I'd met, and it was nice. But one weekend, early in the semester, I just signed up for Awakening because it was like, oh, I need something to do this weekend, it'll be fun, we'll see. And even coming up to it, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this, it's going to be such a hassle, it's like a whole weekend away from school. At this point, I'd been kind of getting into, like going out with friends on the weekend, so it was kind of like, oh, I'm going to be missing out on so much fun, going away to the Poconos for 2 days. And I was so wrong. It was just the most amazing weekend. Awakening weekend, it really made my faith so much deeper and stronger. And each activity I felt brought me so close to the people around me, so close to God, and so close to the whole community, the whole church. And so, I don't want to spoil anything about Awakening because anyone who hasn't gone has to go, and you have to enjoy it to the fullest. But I remember really specifically, all of us on the Awakening, we were taking our picture at the very end of it, and we were all lining up, kind of like a high school graduation picture. And I remember thinking, like, oh my gosh, I feel closer to a lot of these people than I felt to my high school class that I spent 7 years with in school. And I spent a weekend with these people. And that was like such an amazing realization of, oh my gosh, this 2-day retreat brought me so close. These people in a way, like you can only get through God. So yeah, it was one of the most impactful weekends I've ever had. And if you haven't gone, I totally suggest it.
Should I keep standing up? No, you don't have to. We're just, so I'm just going to ask you a few follow-up questions just about in your general faith experience in college. So while at Penn,
Would you please speak a little louder?
Yes, I can. So while at Penn, what has been your most challenging faith formation experience of living the Catholic faith and keeping it while in school? Because that's a difficult thing for a lot of people to do. But what's been the most challenging moment for you thus far?
Oh boy. The most challenging part, Penn has a pretty big party culture, and it's easy to get really sucked up into it. And even especially, so right now I'm rushing a fraternity. I'm rushing a few fraternities, and so especially that whole culture, it's easy to really get way too carried away, where you're not just having fun anymore, and you're doing something more serious. And so I'd say trying to balance, the fun that comes with college and being with a bunch of people the same age as you, and your faith and Christian beliefs, that's been the most difficult thing, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. It's a good thing to experience. I want to also ask, while I guess you can't share a lot of things that happened on Awakening, or really any at all for the people who haven't gone, how did you feel with the development of long-term friendships since you've been on Awakening, and how those have grown over time since you've been?
Oh yeah, I met a ton of people on Awakening, but especially my small group. John was in it, Nicole was in it, Jeff, Danny, I don't know if she's here, and then Jonathan. Those people in my small group, I feel like they're some of my closest friends now, weeks and weeks, or months later, I guess. And so me and those people in my small group, because really Awakening is so spiritually intense that it's almost impossible not to form friendships with these people. And so within the small group, I feel like I create really close bonds that will transcend college, I hope. And then even beyond that group, I met so many different people who really added so much perspective that, you see these faces at the Newman dinner, but I'm kind of a shy person, so I never go up and say hi. And so being in an environment where it forced me to meet these people, I was so lucky. So.
Great experience to share with everyone else. Thanks so much, Will.
Thanks.
And we're going to move on to Brooke Engelbrektsson with her testimony.
Hi everyone, my name is Brooke. I'm a junior at Penn. I had the opportunity to go to Seek over winter break, and if you don't know, it's a conference that takes place every 2 years in a different city around the country, and it's meant for Catholic college students or college students who are pursuing the faith or interested in becoming Catholic. I had never been to a large conference like that, so I was a little intimidated and wasn't sure if I actually wanted to sign up, and if I could, make the sacrifice, like the economic sacrifice of, paying to go to the city and paying for the tuition, or making the sacrifice of spending time away from my family over winter break. But I came to one of the interest meeting nights where they were doing raffles for scholarships, and I was like, God, if you want me to go on this retreat, just pull my name out of there, go to scholarships. And Father Carlos picked my name for the full ride scholarship, and I was like, all right, this is a sign. I need to go to Indianapolis over winter break, and so that's where I was. There were about 16,000 to 17,000 college students, which was just so overwhelming, and it was a true testament to how alive our faith is on campuses around the country. But it was also a reminder of how much work there is to do on the college campuses, because you can say, wow, there were 16,000, but you could also say, oh, there were only 16,000 people. Why can't there be 20,000 or 30,000? So that was also super exciting. Every day we had daily mass, confession, adoration, and talks given by priests, sisters, adult men and women who travel across the country to speak on different topics like relationships, the sanctity of life, discipleship, evangelization, understanding the Holy Spirit. So I got the opportunity to go to talks and learn about things that I didn't even know I didn't know. And so it was a really great education opportunity to learn more about the faith and to spend time with people who are part of the community outside of Philly. So that was fun. The theme of Seek this year was encounter something more. And I definitely walked away from Seek looking back on it, seeing how I encountered God in all the different places, whether it was in confession or whether it was just talking to people from different schools or listening to the speakers. And everyone walks away from retreats or conferences feeling revitalized in their faith, which is completely normal, but I felt like I've kind of kept that high, and I've been able to look at my own faith in my own life and say, how am I pursuing Christ? How am I encountering him every single day? And am I also helping the people around me encounter him? And am I leading them closer to Christ? And something that one of the speakers talked about was, our purpose on earth is to love one another as brothers and sisters in Christ, and to love someone is to will the good of them. And to will the good of them is to bring them closer to Christ. So coming back on campus, I've been looking at all the relationships that I have, and I've been seeing how I can bring those people closer to Christ, whether they're already part of the Catholic Church or they don't believe at all. So I'm super thankful for the opportunity to have gone, and all the friendships I made, and Focus Missionaries that facilitated it all. So if you have the opportunity to go, next year's SLS and the week after, or year after, is Seek again. So I highly recommend it.
So, Brooke, I only have one question for you. And it's along the same lines as the first question that I asked Will here. But besides the sign in the raffle ticket at Seek, what is one sign particularly that God has shown you that's been the most difficult to accept since you've been at Penn?
Oh gosh. I mean, kind of like what you were talking about before, like the campus culture and like the college culture, and like who you surround yourself with kind of determines a lot about like your actions and how you treat others. And so definitely the end of freshman year, or beginning of my freshman year, I met Nicole Weldon. I don't know if some of you guys know her. And she's probably one of the biggest signs in my life that God had put in, and she's the one that invited me to live in the household, the women's household. And at first I was a little hesitant too because I didn't know what people would think of me if I lived in a house with 12 other Catholic women, or just accept all the expectations that come of someone that lives in the household. And I was really scared, but nothing but good has come of it, and I'm so thankful for Nicole and then also Gabby and all the other friends I made freshman year who I then moved into the house. And yeah, I don't regret it for a second.
Thanks so much. Next, we're going to hear from Gabby Utomo about her testimony and experience.
Okay. Hi everyone. So, like Sam said, my name is Gabby. So I'm from Jakarta, Indonesia, and one thing that hasn't changed since coming from all the way from the other side of the world is that the name Gabby is very mainstream. Which, if you stick around, you will find many other Gabbys, which is why I have a picture of me and another Gabby pointing at the word Gabby. So one of the biggest shifts that I've come across since coming just geographically a different space is also that I went to a Christian high school. And so I've never really delved into what it meant to be Catholic. But coming here, I knew that being Catholic was something that I could relate to people with, hopefully. I mean, we have the same prayers, we have the same mass type, and I was hoping that I would find a family here. And even though I still struggle to say the prayer before meals, you guys know which one it is, I found that Newman has been a community where people genuinely, especially in a place like Penn where you're always fighting somebody, Newman has been a group of people that's genuinely believing that God has positioned everybody in a place strategically in his plan, and there's no need to push each other aside, but you kind of grow together and you pray for each other, and that's been really, really beautiful. So there are many things that I've done for the first time since I've come to Newman, and my faith has really blossomed. From adorations during retreats, that's a picture of us at a retreat, and then spending Thanksgiving together because Thanksgiving is not a thing back home. But also in the top left corner, that was when we decided to run down to Center City during the Super Bowl party, or not party, but after we won the Super Bowl. So Michelle, John, Nick, and Danny, thank you for keeping me alive. It was really dangerous, but I really would not have spent my first year any other way. And so please come to the Super Bowl party next week.
So, Gabby, making the transition from a country that is in the United States to Penn can be a difficult one for a lot of people, and it takes a lot of different strings being pulled to make that transition easier. And some people are lucky enough, like yourself, to have a place like Newman to be able to do that. But there are bumps along the trail and things that happen that make it a bit more difficult, though God is there to help us. What's one example that you would bring up specifically of a difficult moment that you've had while at Newman where you've realized the help that you have here and the love of the people here have brought you through it and made you a better person afterwards?
You're really good. I think I haven't had the struggles that a lot of people have had. I'm fortunate enough that I don't get very homesick, if that makes sense. But I think just coming into Newman in the first place is kind of something that God really placed into my life. Like, I would not have come across Newman at all if I didn't see, if I didn't go to this specific mass one Sunday where Joe stood on the stand and he was like, hey, everybody come to Awakening. And I thought, oh, what a great idea. I don't know any of these people, but, might as well. But the friends that I've made at Newman have really guided me and, helped me understand that God always has a plan for you along the way. And it's just the amount of times that I've heard people say, oh, I'm praying for you. That's really something that helps you move along.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing. So finally, our last testimonial will be from Adrianna Dropulic. Dropulic, which is a very difficult name to pronounce, so I tried very hard to get it right on the first try. Probably still butchered it, but
You're good. Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Adri. I'm a senior at Penn, and I apologize in advance. My testimony is going to be a little bit longer, like 5-6 minutes, but bear with me. Okay, so before I tell you about our wonderful mission trip to Peru this winter, I'll tell you a little about myself so you can better understand the journey I went on. Before Penn, I attended Catholic school all my life. Coming to Penn was a spiritual shock because for the first time, my peers actively questioned my faith in a highly secular environment. Further, I'm a physics major, and I'm going to grad school in the fall to study high-energy particle physics, a field in which being Catholic isn't always welcomed. These factors and others took a noticeable toll on my spiritual life, particularly in my ability to trust God's plan for me. As we prepared for mission, I meditated on the phrase, "Love cannot be poured out from an empty cup," meaning that to give freely of ourselves without requiring anything in return, we must first trust God and receive his love, which by definition is freely given. But as much as I pondered this axiom, I didn't truly know what it meant to love freely. I had to go to Peru to even begin to understand its true meaning. So now that you understand where I was to some extent, I can tell you about our wonderful mission in Peru. Buenos dias, somos misioneros católicos, is the greeting we cheered every morning in Yayi, Peru. A poor town which rests at 13,000 feet in the highlands of southern Peru, snuggled between towering mountains, spotted with clay homes with crumbling facades, green with grass and hope, traversed by giggling children who chased their sheep through the dusty streets. We brightly recited this greeting to the people we visited at 8:30 a.m. to begin a conversation that would lead to a communal prayer and house blessing. It was also the perfect time to recruit the niños for our catechesis program. It surprised me that the locals warmly welcomed us, the gringos, into their homes, kissing us on the cheek and embracing us. The closeness, the trust in complete strangers struck me as so different from our culture at home. This first morning of house visits, a week into our trip, was honestly the first moment I felt like I was understanding why God called me to Peru. If I had more time, I would explain to you why I did not always feel that way. How when we first arrived in Cusco, I was physically and spiritually drained. I had no idea why God called me to Peru, and I just wanted to go home. I'd tell you how, with hindsight, I realized that this low was essential. I had to throw myself overboard, out of my comfort zone, so God could send the ship. If I had more time, I'd tell you about how we dug trenches for water and scaled a mountain carrying baby pine trees, about how I thanked God that Remy took my heaviest trees and still proceeded to sprint up the mountain, about how the superhuman Peruvian woman carrying 30 trees still tried to lighten my load. If I had a few more minutes, I'd laugh and recount how the kids joyfully jumped on James and Pat, ecstatic to play with their new friends. I'd recount how Teresa and Paulina were the first to volunteer for any task on or off the mountain, even at the risk of marriage proposals. If I had more time, I'd tell you about the day when the altitude got the best of me, when I was shaking uncontrollably and couldn't even open my hands. And through what I'm sure seemed like a small act to them, Claire and Pat helped me immensely. That day was a turning point for me, because in the midst of my fear, I just trusted God. There are so many more beautiful memories I could tell you about. Blowing bubbles and dancing with the children at the Three Kings Day Fiesta. And there's a photo of the lovely Kim Shields up there doing just that. I'd smile and tell the story of how Nelson, Gabby, Naima, John, and I dancing in the hail as we descended the mountain. I'd tell you about Sean speaking in confident Spanish at the house visits, even hopping on a motorcycle, holy water flying, to go bless a friend's house. I'd tell you about Nancy and William and Carmen and Cody and Juancho and of course Mary. But unfortunately, as you've likely heard, I don't have the time. So I'll just share what I learned and how I grew. On the last night of our trip, I wrote this in my journal. I've been thinking a lot about love on this trip. Love from God, love from relationships, loving others. I saw God in the people I met on this trip, and I think that's what I've been missing at Penn. Being Catholic is not an individual exercise, but requires connecting with others and worshiping together. It is the immense love and support that every person on this trip has shown every other person, the immense selflessness and humility. And you know what? I finally realized that's the reason I had to come to Peru, not only to learn that I need to completely trust God, but to realize that there is camaraderie in the faith. I also realized that I was only able to give of myself on this trip because God graced me first. In a small way, we gave to the people we met. The grand total of 5 trees that I planted on that mountain, the smirk of the boy on the football field and the tears in his eyes when we left, the kiss on the elder's cheek, the kids' glowing smiles as they waited for us outside catechesis, and just got more than I ever expected in return. Since meeting you all and the people in Peru, I've been lighter, more open, more giving. Remy asked us to do an exercise on this trip, in which we listed the qualities that the other missionaries brought out in us. With some hindsight and careful thought, I redid this exercise. I want to tell you how you've each inspired me and changed me for the better. So in one word, almost done, I promise. Gabby's gentleness, Teresa's leadership, Sean's sincerity, Claire's compassion, Pat's dependability, James's vigilance, Naima's humility, Nelson's wisdom, Kim's loyalty, Paulina's generosity, Mary's optimism, John's fortitude, Remy's gratitude, Patrick's charity, and the Peruvian people's trust. And I thank you all for that. This was the journey I went on this winter. I had to go all the way to Peru to learn just how much I need to trust God. I had to go all the way to Peru to meet the people who won't remember my name, but I'll remember theirs, who taught me very personal things about love and trust. I had to go all the way to Peru to become friends with wonderful people who live a block away from me, who taught me that we cannot give from an empty cup. And honestly, I didn't realize most of this until one Wednesday morning. I was sipping my coffee, preparing for the first day of my last semester of college, reading morning prayer in my complimentary Magnificat, trying to assimilate what I had learned in Peru. And I read the Bible verse of that morning, which was from the Gospel of John. And of all things, it was, we love because he first loved us. So thank you for listening to my testimony.
Adrian, that was really incredible. Thank you for that testimony and for everyone else's that have given testimony. It's really been wonderful. I did want to ask one particular question that I wanted to say. So Peru was obviously an emotionally and spiritually wrenching experience for you, which is really incredible how you could give words to that meaning and participation and love. Here at Penn, it's a bit different from Peru, and coming back here might have been a little bit of a transition, but what is one moment since you've been back at Penn when you've had nearly an empty chalice, but you still had a little bit left to give, and then you decided to give it up? Can you name a moment where that happened that made you feel the most love for that person?
Since I've been back at Penn?
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know, it was probably when I was back at home, honestly, even before I came to Penn. Just, my sister's a freshman at Georgetown, and she had also been to Peru before, and it was great because, without going into too much detail, we haven't really been able to talk that much about faith since we kind of went to different colleges. But it was beautiful because I was able to share my experience with her, and she was able to say, "Oh, I've been there. I've been to Ollantaytambo, and that's what you felt there." And I don't know. It was just, I don't know if that exactly answers your question.
Yeah,
It was just a very beautiful connection.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we really appreciate all the time you guys put into giving this, and can we just give one more round of applause for these boys?
And thank you for Sam for hosting on the spot. See you all next week.